DarthWeezie here from Weaponized Autism. This is journal number 2 for this week. So, we last left off with the plan to go to the Dukes of Rahadum, going first to the capital city of Azir, to get them to help us fight one of the Dukes from there, Marty O'Donnell. So, Marty O'Donnell, the dude we've been chasing all campaign that has the Army of the Dead and all this stuff, he is one of the Dukes of Rahadum, one of the 5 Dukes. There's the Sultan, who's the king, and there's 5 Dukes below him. Each has their own city and lands, and one of them happens to be Marty O'Donnell. So we went to the Sultan, and we told him what had happened. The Sultan agreed that if we could find proof and show him proof that Marty O'Donnell did the things we said he did, which was tomb raiding, gathering that artifact, and raising an army, those type of things, so we could prove that he had done things bad, that he would strip him of his position and power. So, we needed proof, the Sultan said. So we got proof by going to the other areas for proof, to visit each of the Dukes in those areas. So first of all, he told us that the Sultan told us that the only way Marty O'Donnell would have had as many people working as he did would have been through slaves, because there were several hundred slaves working for him at the excavation site, digging open the tomb. So, Sultan told us that one of the Dukes happens to be the main slave trader in the whole region. So in order to figure that out, in order that the Sultan would know that he had slaves, we had to go to this guy and get his documentation of said slaves. And the Sultan already believed our story by this point to the most part, but he just didn't have solid proof. The reason he believed us, one of the reasons, is because of the cursed tattoo that's on the body of Aragoth from touching the dagger. And the Sultan's priests and wizards confirmed that this was actually what it was. So now we just had to have proof that Marty O'Donnell was the one that had done this. Well, we took a boat around the coast, and the first city we came to was not the one of the slave Duke. The first one we came through was to a different Duke, and we told him what we were doing, and he notoriously hates O'Donnell. And if he said if the Sultan would sign off on it, he would help us destroy O'Donnell. So we got his blessing, and now we just had to continue to find proof for the Sultan. So we went to the next city over and talked to the slave Duke there. The slave Duke, actually, before we even talked to him, we bought some slaves. So we bought some dude to take care of the children, and we bought Shay, the Goblin, bought bought a sex slave, classic Shay, and then Aragoth bought someone to carry his things. So yes, we are slave owners now. Well, I'm not. I didn't buy any slaves. They did though. They're gonna be very useful, and also like I have a spell that can feed them all, so it's like pretty cost effective too. So that's nice. So now we have those slaves. We went and talked to the Duke, and there's like 8 of us going there to talk to him. There's like me, Shay, Aragoth, the 2 children, the carry slave, the caretaker slave, which is a eunuch for obvious reasons because the children, and the sex slave companion, I should say. So that's kind of funny. It was like this big group, and then the Duke commented on, thank you for your purchase kind of thing. And so now we're trying to get the documentation from this Duke that he indeed sold slaves to Marty O'Donnell. He's a bit hesitant to give away that information. He doesn't like O'Donnell either, but he's a good businessman and he doesn't want to disclose that information without the Sultan's blessing. We did not ask for written documentation of the Sultan's wishes, so we had to convince him a lot of reasons. And we eventually did convince him to show us the documentation and to give it to us so we could take back to the Sultan. And also, it cost us 100 gold pieces to get that because we didn't have written consent. So he's like, well, you can buy it from me then. If the Sultan really sent you, I wouldn't have any problem with this, but you have no written documentation of that. So he charged us for it instead. So him, the other Duke, and the Sultan are now all on board, and we went back to the Sultan to talk to him. The Sultan saw that the documentation was presented, that yes, Marty O'Donnell bought hundreds of slaves for excavation. The only reason he could know that it was for excavation, we reasonably convinced him that that's the only reason Marty O'Donnell would have had all those slaves. And he used, the Sultan summoned a genie to show him the excavation site. And the Sultan could easily see through the magic that indeed Marty O'Donnell had been excavating there. And for this crime, which was grave robbing and things like that, that's a crime in Rahatum. Marty O'Donnell was stripped of his rank, and the Sultan, because of the nature of Marty having an undead army, the Sultan has declared war against O'Donnell, essentially. It's kind of hard to declare war against a person, but basically, we hadn't gotten to the details yet of what that means, but we're going to fight O'Donnell. So it's the Sultan and the Dukes of Rahatum. So that's going to be very interesting. So we have his whole entire home nation at war with Marty O'Donnell because of our persuasion and the things we did. And hopefully, next week we'll get to how we'll actually combat O'Donnell, because this entire week was spent doing what I just said, and that was convincing the Sultan to help us defeat Marty O'Donnell. So that's where I'll leave it for this week, and hopefully next week we'll have another journal entry. Till then, DarthWeezie's from Weaponized Autism out.